You know the exact moment, right? You're holding a lukewarm coffee at a conference.
Oh, yeah. The classic networking coffee.
Exactly. Or maybe you're settling into a chair for a job interview and the person across from you smiles and out comes the inevitable universal icebreaker.
The dreaded, so where are you from?
Yes. You just cannot escape it.
No, you really can't. I mean, it is the absolute bedrock of early social interaction.
It is. And today, our mission for this deep dive is to decode the mechanics of that very interaction.
Which is surprisingly complex when you really look at it.
Right. So we're pulling from a stack of sources today, primarily centering on this really interesting linguistic guide called The Art of Describing Your Hometown, along with some sociological research on how we form our personal narratives.
Yeah, and the goal for you listening today isn't to just, learn new vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's really to understand how we communicate our personal background in those crucial first few seconds of meeting someone.
Because we are looking at the foundational architecture of how you present your origin to the world.
Exactly, because when you answer that question, you are doing so much more than just reciting a dot on a map.
Right.
A hometown description is usually the very first complete narrative we construct about ourselves for a total stranger.
Yeah, it's the opener.
Right, and it dictates the context for literally everything that follows. I mean, you are preemptively framing how they should view your background, your influences, and, the environment that basically calibrated your baseline expectations of the world.
So let's start with the guide's firm boundary on the word itself, because the source text defines hometown very strictly. It's the specific, fixed location where someone grew up.
Right.
And it operates absolutely independently of your current address or, where you pay taxes today.
It creates this really permanent divide between origin and current status.
Which totally makes sense, because a hometown isn't a live GPS coordinate.
No, definitely not.
Right, because a GPS coordinate follows you. Like, if you move to Tokyo, your GPS says Tokyo. But your hometown functions more like, like a linguistic anchor.
Oh, I like that. A linguistic anchor.
Yeah, it stays buried in the seabed exactly where it was dropped, even if your ship has sailed, thousands of miles away since then.
And the psychological utility of that anchor is what makes it so fascinating. I mean, we really have to look at why humans even crave this specific piece of geographical context when we meet strangers.
Why do we care so much?
Right. Because when you hand someone your anchor, your fixed point of origin, you are instantly establishing your roots.
Yeah.
In those initial moments of interaction, our brains are just desperately scanning for clues to categorize the other person, to find some common ground or just understand their starting line.
Oh, absolutely.
So by stating your hometown as a fixed historical fact, you ground the conversation in something permanent.
You're basically saying, before I was the polished professional sitting across from me right now, this is the soil I grew in.
Exactly. And that permanent ground is incredibly useful for building trust.
Because trust needs context, right?
Exactly. Trust requires context. If you just talk about where you live now, it's transient. People want to know what shaped your formative years because it gives them a cognitive shortcut to understanding your values or your tempo.
But see, an anchor is totally useless if the other person can't picture the waters you're anchored in.
That's very true.
Like if I just say, oh, I'm from Springfield and leave it there, I haven't given you any context unless you happen to have lived in that specific Springfield yourself.
Right. You've basically given them a label, but zero sensory data.
Exactly. And this brings us to a major observation from the text. It notes that natural, native-sounding hometown descriptions typically open with the place name attached to a single defining adjective.
Yes.
And it argues that the vast majority of these descriptions rely on two opposite poles, laid back or bustling.
The two primary speeds of human settlement, really.
See, I read this and honestly, I bristled. I immediately pushed back against it.
Really?
Because reducing the entire complex socioeconomic environment of a childhood down to just one of two words, it just feels incredibly reductive.
Oh, sure.
Are we really saying the human experience of place is just a binary? I mean, think about a quiet, sleepy suburb that is built around a massive, noisy automotive factory.
Right.
Or, a college town that is absolutely dead in the summer and completely manic during the school year. Towns are contradictory. They're messy.
I mean, you're not wrong. It does sound like an oversimplification if you treat it as like a comprehensive sociological audit.
Right.
But the source material isn't trying to capture the complete nuance of urban planning here.
Okay, fair.
It's identifying a cognitive heuristic, a mental shortcut.
For the listener.
Yes.
Yeah.
The text clarifies that these two adjectives function as opposite ends of a spectrum. The brain needs a quick schematic to load into working memory. When you're meeting someone, you just don't have the runway to deliver a 10-minute monologue about, the seasonal population fluctuations of your college town.
Yeah, that would be a terrible networking strategy. You just need to establish the baseline tempo.
Precisely that. Tempo. The listener needs to grasp the fundamental vibe immediately. Do things move slowly there, prioritizing space and quiet? Or do they move fast, prioritizing density and action?
Bustling.
Right. And the guide uses a really great comparative example to show why mastering this spectrum is so effective. The example is, I grew up in a laid-back small town, but I live in a much more bustling city now.
It's a classic sentence structure.
It is, but look at the mechanics of what that sentence achieves in under 5 seconds.
Okay, let's break it down.
You establish your origin point on one side of the spectrum and immediately contrast it with your present reality on the opposite side.
Oh.
You have completely communicated a trajectory of personal growth or change. You've given them the poles of your life journey in a single breath. And that provides a massive amount of context for who you are today.
Okay, I see the utility in the tempo now. That makes sense. But once you set that baseline, whether you lean laid back or bustling, it still feels a bit abstract. It can, yeah.
Like, it's an idea floating in the air. We have to tether it to physical reality somehow.
You definitely need a tangible reference point.
And the source introduces the concept of the landmark for this exact purpose.
Yeah.
Now, my first thought was that a landmark is kind of like a physical bookmark in your memory, but that doesn't quite capture the function, I don't think.
No.
It's more like a conversational load-bearing wall.
Oh, a load-bearing wall. Let's unpack that.
Well, think about it. In a house, if you remove a load-bearing wall, the structure fundamentally changes.
Yeah.
And you have to account for that change.
Right.
In a story about your hometown, the landmark is the structure that holds up the memory. The text actually points out that we rarely bring up landmarks just to prove they exist. We bring them up to describe change over time.
That is such a crucial distinction.
Yeah, if that load-bearing wall is removed, if the local factory closes or, the historic diner is torn down, you are basically forced to talk about why the house looks different now, and the psychology of memory in place supports that entirely. Landmarks aren't just navigational waypoints, they are shared reality.
Shared reality.
Right. The guide offers a sentence that captures this perfectly. It says, "There used to be an old landmark on the main street, but it's completely gone now."
Even just hearing that as a generic example, you can feel the weight in that phrasing.
Because it taps directly into the sociology of nostalgia. The source explicitly highlights this. When you mention a vanished landmark, you are moving past geography and into shared human vulnerability.
Wow.
Nostalgia acts as a really potent social glue. Even if the stranger you're talking to has never been to your town, they know exactly what it feels like to return to a familiar place and find a piece of their history erased.
It's the universal experience of time marching on, and that shifts the context of the conversation entirely, doesn't it?
It totally flips it.
We are no longer exchanging data about city infrastructure. We're suddenly having a conversation about impermanence.
Yes. And the text actually refers to this as the richest extension of describing your hometown.
Escaping the dreaded geography lesson.
Exactly.
The guide argues that relying on comparative language and time markers is what really elevates the description. Instead of listing the population size and the main exports,
which nobody wants to hear.
Right, you use phrases like, "It's changed a lot since I was a kid," or "It's still pretty much the same quiet place."
Notice how those phrases function, though. They position the speaker's memory directly against the present reality.
That specific concept, positioning memory against present reality, is such a fascinating framing for a communication guide.
It really is.
Because it implies that the most engaging way to describe where you're from is actually to tell a micro story about time passing.
Nah.
The physical place is really just the backdrop.
And that is the core mechanism of why this works. If you stand at a party and list off the local climate, the major highways, and the square mileage of your county, the person listening is going to start looking for the nearest exit. Geography lessons just don't trigger mirror neurons in the human brain.
And mirror neurons being the things that allow us to feel empathy and connect with someone else's story.
Yes. A list of facts doesn't activate them. Narratives do. When you tell a micro story about, say, a mom and pop hardware store that got replaced by a massive condo development, you trigger the listener's own memories of loss or change in their own life.
They see themselves in your story.
Exactly. You're sharing your personal experience of how time has reshaped your world.
Mm.
You invite them to relate to your nostalgia, your surprise, or even your relief that a place is modernized.
You're handing them a thread they can actually pull on in the conversation.
Exactly.
Which leads to the practical application of all this. How do we synthesize the baseline tempo, the load-bearing landmark, and this element of time without sounding like we rehearsed a monologue in the mirror?
Well, the source text offers a very specific blueprint for this. It breaks it down into what it calls a 3-layer formula.
I love looking at the structural engineering of conversation.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
And the formula stacks these elements in a very deliberate order. So layer 1.
Okay, hit me with layer 1.
Layer 1 is the basic identifying description, establishing the tempo with our poles, laid back or bustling.
Got it. Layer 2.
Layer 2 is the specific detail or landmark that's giving us that load-bearing wall to make it tangible.
Real. And layer 3.
Layer 3 is a reflection on change or distance, moving away, visiting occasionally, or observing how it has transformed over the years.
So 1, 2, 3. Vibe, physical anchor, reflection on change.
Right. And the most critical piece of advice in the text is that these 3 layers must be practiced and delivered together.
Together. Why is that grouping so essential? I mean, if someone casually asks where I'm from, isn't layer 1 enough? Like, oh, I'm from a bustling city in the Midwest.
Stopping at layer 1 places the entire cognitive burden of the conversation back on the other person.
Oh, I see.
You've given them a fragmented answer, and now they have to do the conversational labor of dragging the next detail out of you, like, oh, which city, did you like it there? How long has it been?
Right, you're forcing them to conduct an interview instead of just having a conversation.
But when you deliver all 3 layers together, the text notes, it produces a far more natural and memorable answer.
It feels like a real answer.
From a narrative perspective, you're fulfilling the rule of 3. You provide a beginning, a middle, and an end.
A mini story arc.
Yes. You set the scene, you populate it with tangible reality, and you give it emotional resonance through the lens of time. In about 10 seconds, you offer the listener 3 distinct conversational off-ramps.
They get to choose which part of the story they want to react to. Okay, let's put this formula under the microscope. I want to construct a scenario and break down the mechanics in real time.
Okay, let's do it.
So imagine we're at that networking event, we've got our coffees, we shake hands, and I drop the icebreaker. So where are you from?
Okay, plowing the blueprint, I'd say something like, I grew up in a really laid-back town down in the valley. There was this huge historic clock tower right in the center of the main square that everyone used as a meeting point. But, I only visit occasionally now, and it's strange to see how much the area around it has transformed into a bustling commercial zone since I moved away.
Okay, let's dissect the engineering there. That was perfectly textbook.
Thank you.
So layer 1, you gave us laid back town in the valley, instant tempo.
Right.
Layer 2, the historic clock tower. There's the load-bearing wall, the tangible proof of the place.
Yep.
And layer 3, I only visit occasionally, and it's transformed into a bustling commercial zone. You injected the passage of time, the feeling of distance, and you even managed to map the journey from one pole to the other. You went from laid back to bustling.
But notice how the mechanics disappear when it's spoken aloud.
They really do.
It doesn't sound like a formula. It just sounds like a considered, genuine reflection. And as the listener, you now have choices. You can ask me about life in the valley. You can ask if the clock tower is still standing amidst all that new development. Or you could even pivot to asking how I handled the transition of moving away.
It's an invitation to connect rather than a conversational dead end.
It creates a bridge.
So when we pull all these sources together, the overarching theme is crystal clear. Describing where you come from is an act of storytelling, not map-making.
Not map-making at all.
You're using tools like tempo, physical landmarks, and the inevitable passage of time to craft a layered, relatable origin story. It's about taking a geographical fact and turning it into a human experience.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, there is one final implication of this that I think we should explore. It really builds on the text's focus on change and memory.
Oh, let's hear it.
So we discussed the nostalgia of a landmark disappearing and how the core of this interaction is positioning your memory against present reality. But consider this scenario. What happens if your hometown has undergone a total erasure?
Total erasure. Like,
Like
whoa.
the load-bearing walls are all completely gone, the original landmarks are demolished, the tempo has violently shifted 100% from a laid-back small town to an unrecognizable, sprawling, bustling metropolis.
Oh, wow. So the physical reality no longer matches the anchor at all.
Exactly. If that total transformation happens,
Yeah.
is the hometown you were describing to people actually a real physical place anymore?
Oh.
Or has it become a linguistic ghost town, a place that has been wiped off the physical map entirely, only surviving within the specific vocabulary and architecture of your own memories?
A linguistic ghost town. Wow. The idea that the place that shaped you only exists now in the way you choose to describe it to strangers.
It's wild to think about.
That fundamentally changes how you think about every introduction. We're constantly keeping our own history alive just by talking about it.
Just by answering that one question.
Well, that is a heavy and fascinating place to leave it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. The next time someone hands you a coffee and asks where you're from, remember, you aren't just reciting a location. You are handing them a piece of your history. Build the layers, keep the ghost towns alive, and we'll catch you on the next one.